Hey guys, I'm Rick, and that is One Big Pile of Bricks with our amazing guest, Jason. Woo! Now, Jason, explain to everybody who's listening and watching at home.
Oh gosh.
What do you do for work?
So I work for a company called Merlin Entertainment. Most of you would know that as the company that owns LEGOland, Madame Tussauds, Sea Life, and all that other fun stuff. But
I'll try not to make any inappropriate comments.
But I actually design all of the upscale Lego props for the LEGOland parks. So currently I'm working on 3 parks in China, designing anything that looks like a Lego piece, but much, much larger. Usually made out of fiberglass or metal or wood or whatever.
And obviously, I don't want to get you into trouble, so let's talk about what that is like as a job.
So it's very interesting. You know, the audience obviously hasn't really met me or know me. I actually used to be a master model builder and designer for LEGOland as well, designing all the displays for Miniland and around the park. And I did that for, 10 years. 10 years I did that. And so it was actually a pretty easy transition into becoming what we call model props creative, which is what I am, which I've done for the last 3 years. And basically, I design everything digitally. Anything that, like I said, that looks like a Lego piece. So, for instance, when you walk into a LEGOland park, you've got that big entrance arch that looks like it's made out of Lego pieces.
Yeah.
That's my job for the new parks, is to do things like that, or giant robots or whatever it may be. And so basically I'll design it in a 3D program. We send it off to Lego, make sure that they're happy with it. Once they are, then we get it back in a high resolution form and send it off to a company that actually manufactures it. So
that sounds very exciting.
Yeah, it can be. It's very stressful.
Yes.
Right now
doesn't sound like fun.
Right now I'm working on 3 parks in China at the same time, and each one has roughly 1,500 props.
Wow.
Some of them transfer over. I'd say about 80% transfer between the parks, but then we have special lands that are only in one park, or special attractions that are only in one park, and so we have to do additional models for that as well.
Is that to say change it up so it's different, so they're not all a copy of each other?
A little bit. And there's also, regional things, stuff that folks in Shanghai might like, but folks in Shenzhen may not.
Yeah.
Or, if there's a brand that is very popular, then we might push towards that. There's also been instances where we've had to remove models because of cultural reasons.
Really?
I can say we used to have a giant rubber duck, and we had to relocate him elsewhere because there's some animosity. Sorry.
No, it's fine.
Forgot to turn it on. There we go. Now we're good.
That's interesting. So have they broken ground on those parks yet?
Yes, all 3 parks have broken ground.
They've announced them?
They've announced them.
So you're not going to get in trouble?
I don't think that they've announced the opening dates, which I don't have any say in that. I don't know when they're going to open. But they have announced all 3 parks, and all 3 parks are in phases of construction. Yeah.
Sounds like a great job.
It depends on the day.
I don't want to get you into trouble.
No.
I had a conversation before, so I have to be like super careful.
I don't. Everybody, ever since, so I used to be a spokesperson for LEGOland Florida, and I may have actually met some of you guys at Brickbench in Australia many years ago. Jeez.
Do you remember what year it was? I know it was hot as balls that weekend.
Was it 2012, 2013?
I think it was that really bad when it was like really extreme heat.
Well, it was extreme heat for you guys, and I got there. I'm like, oh, it feels fantastic here. What is going on?
Yeah, but that building is not designed for.
That was the quickest trip that I have ever done in my life.
So did Brickvention pay for the flights, or did Merlin send you out? How did it work?
Brickvention covered the flights. I covered the hotel, and I think I was there for 4 days.
And then you flew home.
And it was 2 days, almost 2 days of flight to get to you, and then same going back. So I was gone for a week from work, but I only was in Australia for like 4 days.
Did you have a good time?
It was fantastic. I would move to Melbourne in a heartbeat. Anyways, back to what
At least you are excited.
Yeah, if I could move to Melbourne tomorrow, I would. I loved how the city, it felt old and new at the same time.
It's one of those things, dude, that Merlin is everywhere. So, there's a lot of Merlin stuff down there, but I don't know if there's design stuff.
Well, I've been told. So I do my job remotely. I can work from wherever, and I've been told that I can actually move anywhere in the world as long as there is a Merlin property.
Wow.
So it's a little bit more difficult for my wife. Being the pharmacist in the U.S., she's kind of a little bit more constrained to be here. But we looked elsewhere. We actually looked at New Zealand for a while. We looked at Australia, just the cost of how much it would be to move over.
Yeah, and taking animals overseas is hard.
It is and it isn't. All you have to do is, because we actually looked into this, all you have to do is have a vet from this side and a vet from that side check out her health and approve of it, and we're good to go. So...
Wow.
It's actually not as bad as many people think, but it is.
The cost of going over
The cost is the expensive stuff, and, getting the house broken down into the bare minimum so that you're not taking an entire cargo ship by yourself.
Lugging everything overseas, right? That should be the hardest part. Because Caroline and I have spoken about, what I do after Lego, and I said, I want to move to Germany, and it's like, well, we'll have to sell all this stuff because you don't want to be, hauling stuff all around the world. And I said, yeah, no, it's not.
Yeah, I mean, even now, my house is a mess at the moment because we're trying to figure out what we still need, what we can get rid of. I told you a couple of years ago, I still need to get rid of some of my Lego that I've collected.
Yeah. I went through a phase where I sold off a lot of my personal Lego. Because you just hoard it, and it becomes I don't think anyone understands that when you work with the brand and you have access to things a little bit cheaper than the norm, you end up accumulating a lot more than the average person. So I sold off a lot of mine about 4 years ago.
I mean, I've got, I think, the entire first series of Nexo Knights.
Wow. I've
got the entire series of Lone Ranger, most of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, most of Monster Fighters. I've got a lot, man. And lately what I've been doing is kind of trying to figure out what I want to keep, and I've actually been spending more money on those.
Yeah.
I've been buying lighting kits and
cool.
From a brand in Australia, but I don't know if I'm allowed to say it.
Light My Bricks, yeah, we sell the product.
Oh yeah, Light My Bricks, fantastic.
There's a US distributor here now.
Yes, and it's amazing. I can order the lights and have them in.
Do you know the story behind Light My Bricks?
I know it's a gentleman in Australia that.
Do you know the guy? There's an American brand. There's Brick Stuff, I think it's called. He was so Light My Bricks started off being a wholesaler of that brand.
Okay.
And ended up replicating
figuring
stuff.
It out.
Yeah, and it caused a bit of controversy. So Lego did Lego World, I think it's called, and they announced that we're going to be partnering with Light My Bricks and we're going to release light kits. It was like this thing. The fans were pretty upset, so it got scrapped.
Sorry, I'm a fan of Light My Bricks.
We sell the product in store, so it's fine.
It's a good quality product.
Well, they got really good designers.
They got really good designers. The first kit that I did was with the DeLorean.
Oh, nice.
The large DeLorean.
Yeah.
And
it looks great when the wheels are folded down, right?
It's so good. And the wires are so well hidden that you don't even really know that they're there.
Yeah, it looks so good.
Until you turn it on. So that spawned into getting the Ecto-1 lights. We got the R2-D2 lights. I just bought all of the Star Wars vignette ones as well.
Yeah.
And then I went to another brand to buy cases.
Because there's a big brand in the UK that does cases, but they don't wholesale to anybody.
That's the one I went with.
Wicked Brick.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. I went with Wicked
They're
Brick.
really busy. They sell a lot of stuff.
And it takes a while to get to you.
Yeah.
But from what I've read, there's one of the best for strength, durability, and then the fact that they add the decals on the back.
Yeah. There's other brands that snap when you click them together, and I guess it's still made in China, but they must use a better supplier.
But the fact that they all stack on top of each other for Wicked Brick for certain ones is and that's what the three that I've gotten from them. I haven't tested them out, so I can't say if I'm a fan of them or not yet. But I got the 3 dioramas so that I could stack them on top of each other, and then I just bought the 2 new.
The 2 new ones.
Yeah, I just picked those up on the first.
Wait until you see the ones that come out later in the year.
See, that's funny that you know this stuff, and I don't know this stuff.
That's what happens when I'm a retailer, so I have to know.
Yeah.
So I was looking for like our forward orders and how expensive it's.
Remind me, I have questions for you after this.
But I think like with how big the Lego brand is now, there's a lot of these side companies coming through, making a lot of money on the side.
The add-ons to.
Yeah, there's so much add-ons now.
Yeah, I mean some of them are completely worth it and like for it, like they absolutely should be there. Like Light My Bricks, or any lighting company that takes all these Lego sets and just elevates them so much higher.
The only downside of Light My Bricks is a lot of wires.
Yeah.
There's a lot.
Yeah.
Like.
I mean. And there's very small pin connectors, but I mean, hell, I've got massive hands and I'm still able to do it.
Well, there's a company, or the guy, I don't know, he's sort of dissolved. There was a guy who had a Kickstarter that had a lighting system that operated, I don't know how it worked, but everything was like 1 by 1 little bricks.
And it was had electric current running
through the whole thing.
Yeah.
I heard he did a runner with everybody's money, so.
Well, I mean, I think I saw that Kickstarter and I was like, oh, that sounds good. Until I was like, wait a minute. You're running electricity through plastic. That might not be a great idea. If the conduit is touching the plastic, it's going to melt the plastic and it overheats. And,
he supplied some Kickstarters, but I've got a few customers back at home that brought his product and it didn't come through, and Kickstarter won't refund money. But I guess that's what happens when you're one of the biggest toy brands in the world.
And that's why I always check my Kickstarters.
Well, that's the point, right? So how has anything changed for you at Merlin now that Lego is one of the co-owners?
To be honest, so I was in one of what we called our hubs when the news broke that Lego had, or I should say Kirkby, had purchased Merlin. Because technically it's not Lego that owns us, it's the Lego family that owns
Kirkby
us. Kirkby Investments, which
one of the biggest investment firms in the world.
It's kind of strange that some of the what is it in Canada, some of the retirees, that's where the pension money went.
Yeah.
But anyways, so we were actually very curious because being in a hub and finding out that Lego is going to basically be running you're like, all right, well, what's going to change? Are we going to have access to more pieces? Are we going to have access to different software?
Or budgets could increase.
Or budgets could increase, or they were going to want more detail. And honestly, nothing changed.
That's interesting.
Not one thing changed while I was with the hub. Since I've left and I'm now doing this job, I mean, I have access to an updated piece of software that I didn't have before, but that's not necessarily because Kirkby owns us. It's just because I'm in a different position and I have access to the people who are working on this stuff. But yeah, I don't think a whole lot has actually changed. It's just we now know that we have extra hoops or hurdles that we have to jump through in order to ensure that things are done correctly.
The Lego way.
The Lego way. I'm going to say on record, I never cheated when building with Lego pieces and building models, but I do know people who did.
A lot of cutting and a lot of gluing.
A lot of cutting and glue. Well, the thing is you can cut. It's a gray area.
Yeah, cutting is this really weird
cutting
area.
Cutting is allowed.
Because I know the Brickman does it, so...
Cutting is allowed as long as, from the exterior, it looks possible to do it. Or there is a piece that can do it.
Yeah.
Because, for instance, there may be a build that some of our designers or builders do where we may run out of the piece that they need in order to complete a model, and it could be 3 or 6 months before that piece arrives. They can't take that model and just go, just put it on the side and we'll see what happens.
Do they get a guillotine and
Guillotine, X-Acto knife, whatever is needed.
Because they used to paint models as well back in the day.
That's not allowed anymore.
That's not allowed anymore?
That is not allowed anymore.
Because they used to do that a lot back in the day.
The bucket of gold, they used to do it.
Yeah.
Now it has to be sourced pieces. Yep. The only thing that we are allowed to do for the Lego models themselves is to UV coat them. Yeah, which does happen on every Lego model.
I do have a Legoland car at work. I'm not going to say how I acquired it. I just have one at work. One of the little
I have way too much at my house. I have I have a Miniland car. I have. Probably shouldn't say what all I have, but these are all stuff that was given to me. So it's not.
It was given to Jason.
It was given to me as gifts. I've got I have the Indiana Jones rat from the hotel.
Oh, cool.
I love him so much. And then I've got a couple of prototypes from models that I've created over the years for events or media things that we've had to do. So like, hate to bring it up, when Chima was open in Florida.
Nothing wrong with Chima.
There's a fun.
I think the biggest problem with Chima is the story was no kid wants to see animals fighting each other. I think that's the thing.
There's other things that were problems to me, but I'm not going to go into detail on that. It didn't do well, which is why it left Florida. Anyways, when we opened that land, they asked us to recreate the entire land in it was like a less than minifigure scale. It was just slightly smaller than minifigure scale. So we had to create all of the boats.
Oh, cool.
We had to create all of the decorations, the ride buildings, the shops. It was just this big layout. You can probably find photos online of it. And I have one of the boats, and I have the prototype of the storefronts because they were going to toss them out, and I was like, oh, I'll take that. And the last thing that I have is on my 10th anniversary, my old boss at the park sent a model to the hub to give to me as a gift, which was in Legoland, Florida. There was a partnership we did with the power company. And this is back when we put all the solar panels.
Yeah.
So we put solar panels on the Imagination. This was before they did the entire parking lot. And they wanted the Legoland to have a display to show how the power works, how the solar panels take the sun, but all out of Lego. And when they did, they said, all right, well, we need some houses to decorate the street, to make it look like it's a neighborhood. All right, cool. So I pulled a little bit of inspiration from this house, or maybe a little inspiration from this house, and one right in the middle, that was my house.
Oh, cool.
My actual house.
Wow.
So my boss, when that display was destroyed, saved that house because he knew it was mine.
Oh, that's
sent it
cool.
to the hub, and they gave it to me as a gift.
That's pretty cool.
So I have the recreation of my house in my house.
I caught up with Gary McIntyre.
Yep.
So he has some interesting models at home, so I've seen some really weird stuff. But in saying that, for years there's a guy named Dan Brown who has that really weird plastic brick museum.
Mm-hmm.
He was somehow getting a lot of ex-Legoland displays for a long time.
There's ways.
He's an odd unit, that dude, though. He's a weird unit. I don't know.
Most of the displays, the park displays, are reused. So Lego allows us to send them the bricks or the bricks and pieces to then be churned up or
they destroy them usually, don't they?
They tear them up to get them back into granules and then remelt it, and we can recycle the bricks that way. So there's a couple of models at Legoland, Florida, some of the larger statues who have lived past their prime, which is about 15 years ish.
Because of plastic art, because you guys sandblast them,
correct,
and then and after a while
you
they get kind of like that weird it looks like fake Lego. It's like a buffing on it, yeah.
So what we'll do once it gets to that point is usually we'll reuse the frame for the new build.
Yeah.
There's no point in making a new steel frame if we've got it. So what they'll do is we'll break it apart, send all the pieces back to Lego. They can then melt everything down or break it up, and then we take the frame and reuse it for the next model.
So in your time, I need to word this carefully so none of us get into trouble. So over your time with Legoland and Merlin, have you enjoyed the last 13 years?
I'm not going to say I've loved every second of it, but overall, yeah, it's a good job to have. Like I was saying earlier, do I love everything that I do? No. Every job you're going to have.
I'm the same. Like we own a business, it's the same.
Every job you're going to have. I mean, hell, I could be a candy taster, and I would still have things that I didn't like about the job, because there's days you're going to have a good day. There's days you're going to have a bad day. There's days where you're going to have so much work on your desk that that you don't know how you're going to accomplish it all. And then there's days where there's a little bit that comes through that just needs to be picked up here and there. It just depends on the day. And the same with being a model builder. I've said it in many interviews when I was a model builder. It's just like every job. There are good things and there's bad things. But
that's the hardest thing with that sort of stuff. Like, I think everyone thinks when you work with Lego, it's all flowers and roses and chocolates and unicorns and pretty things.
And see, people also don't look at it from the other side, because I've done installation on theme parks. I've done the construction. I've done the design. There are weeks that I came home and like my fingers were red and swollen because pressing bricks all day just caused the calluses to build up. When I was doing the installation on LEGOland Florida, I'd come home sunburnt because we'd spend sometimes 10, 12 hours in the sun installing models. I'd come home with my arms just ripped up.
Because people don't understand. Yeah. So when you're moving models, you can damage you. That happens at work all the time.
Because it's so heavy. People don't realize how heavy it can actually get when you have a 6 foot tall guy. I can remember it in my mind, the Venetian in LEGOland Florida, in our Vegas cluster. We had to, all of the curbs had already been poured, so we had to get 4 of us to lift each section of the building to be able to lift it in place up and over the curbs.
No thanks.
There wasn't really a forklift or a crane. We had a boom forklift for some of the larger pieces that we were able to get them in place, but a lot of them it was sheer manpower, just lifting, moving, putting down.
People don't understand that when there's brick in quantity, it's heavy, and you mix structural steel in that as well.
And just so everybody knows, the steel is not to keep the Lego together. Period. It's a big misconception with a lot of people. It's like, oh, they're putting the steel in there to hold the brick because the brick won't hold itself. That's
usually it's so it doesn't fall over and hurt people and kids climb on things.
So you can bolt it down. It's also for safety issues because there are weak points, that if a guest were to pull on them or stand on them, which has happened.
It does. That's why our displays work are protected.
And
besides clay from Nexo Nights,
we have to have steel there just in case.
Oh, it's just people don't understand that. Kids in Lego are great, but kids in Lego displays not so good. Because kids want to climb on things, touch things, and that's why everything at Legoland sometimes is broken because people are breaking off bits and
If you want this is a fun scavenger hunt for your viewers. Go back and watch some of the original opening day interviews for Legoland Florida, and I can't remember which station it was or who did it, but there was a reporter standing in front of the Einstein head in the Imagination Zone. It's this massive, 20 foot tall, Duplo built Einstein head, mustache, all that stuff. While the guy's doing the interview, he's talking about, it was with me, I think. We were talking about, you have to build things to be strong. Why do you have to build them to be strong? It doesn't make sense why you have to use Craggle to glue things. And we're literally talking, and in the background, there's a kid climbing the mustache of the Einstein head, and literally just hanging from the mustache, full weight, legs off the ground, just hanging there. And I turned and I saw it, and I swear I looked at the reporter, I was like, and that is why we have to glue these models. Because he's just hanging off it hanging off for dear life.
It's just, I don't think people realize that Lego displays are generally destroyed by the public. Disney's experiencing that right now. One of the rides I was on, I think it's the Mickey Mouse runway one. They've had to take things out of it because people ripping the props out of the thing.
Oh, you're talking about in California with the there's a fake model, or no, it was. I'm sorry, I'm thinking of even something different. The Mario ride at Universal. They had the display,
people taking stuff.
And there were people, so they literally put a cage over it And that's the stuff that I have to think about now as a designer.
Because people will just have this instinct of taking things.
Yep.
Which, is never a good thing, but it's happened. So this is why at work we've got, like people always ask us, well, Lego displays are protected, that's why.
Oh, yeah.
And plus Brickman, I love Brian. He's a close friend, but, he charges a lot to repair things, so it's not worth the trouble sometimes.
And it depends upon what the break is. It can get people don't realize how much these.
Yeah, so I have we've got Woody. Woody from Toy Story, the one that's on the 1 foot that they made too many of. He has that really bad reddish brown that breaks, right? So we were moving him when we moved into the new store, and one of the bricks shattered, and I'm just like, oh. So I just got some glue and patched it up because to replace that bit was going to cost stupid amount of money from Ryan, which is fair.
Oh, you could probably take care of it yourself.
Yeah, but it's
chisel and a hammer.
That's all it is, right?
All you need.
Have you heard the story about what happened with Ryan and the Jack Sparrow statue?
No.
So I don't know if they're still around. There was a Jack Sparrow statue in a place called Maya, which you might have visited when you were in Melbourne. It's like a big department store that's sort of in the centre of Melbourne. So you've seen Jack Sparrow had the compass and stuff.
Yeah, I think.
So Ryan built Jack Sparrow for Lego and put it in there, which is probably one of the Merlin models that's been replicated everywhere in the world. He got to the car park and got a phone call within 5 minutes saying that the sword was stolen. It happened within 5 minutes.
So, I started my career in 2010 with Merlin. There are 3, counting myself, there are 4 guys from my group of about 25 or 30 that are still left. Wow.
It happens. The job gets the people.
And funny enough, one of them is actually a close co-worker now. He and I work very closely together. But I remember he got hired for the park when I started. I got hired in the hub in Carlsbad. And his very first thing they had him do was replace the keys in Hagrid's hand from the Hagrid model that they used to have.
Yeah, the big one.
And replacing Harry Potter's wand. Because he had a wand in his pocket and somebody just snapped it right off. I mean, there was a time when I worked at LEGOland, Florida. When I trained builders in the hub, I would always tell them this story because it really grasps what can happen with their guests, and this is why we have to reinforce and ensure that they stay safe. I got a call one day when I was working at the park, and they're like, "Hey, one of the minifigures has lost his hand," and I'm like, "Okay, all right." That happens, It's probably because the hand was like this. We had a bolt that would go through the middle of the hand to attach it to the frame. And usually the fingers would snap off or the thumb would snap off, and we'd just replace that. And I come out and I get to the model, and he's literally missing the bottom half of his arm.
Taking his whole arm.
And I'm like, and it's not on the ground. There's no team member around, or there's nobody. There's nobody around. So finally, I go over to one of the closest store, and I'm like, "Do you guys have this?" "Oh yeah, here you go." And they hand it to me. And you have to realize that they're in the brick-built minifigures, the old school ones that could be posed.
Yeah.
There's a full armature all the way down that allows us to move the arms, move the legs, however we want them. They had snapped the steel weld in the elbow of the piece that was...
How is it even possible?
So we found out later on that a guest had let their child jump onto the arm, and he was basically using it like a trampoline. He was just bouncing up and down until the weld finally broke in it. And luckily nobody was hurt, nobody had any injuries or anything, but that's why we have to reinforce, that's why we have to craggle things or glue things.
That's one thing I noticed too at the Florida park and at the California one, that they're doing a lot of that injection molding figures, the ones that are complete, which makes total sense.
Yep. Because 1, it's safer, and 2, less repairs. Yes, and it's also closer to the actual product.
Yeah.
That was the big issue, because we still do brick-built minifigures, but now it's dynamic posed.
Oh, they're doing those weird angles, right? Yeah.
Yep. So where they're like they do in the animated series, or
where their legs in this really weird pose that the minifigure would never be able to do.
Yes. That's what we call the dynamic minifigures. But the old minifigures, the one that we could pose, didn't actually look accurate to the Lego piece. So that's why they kind of moved away from those and went to what we call an SMF, smooth minifigure, or the dynamic brick-built minifigures.
Do you think those are better?
Depends on the situation. So in the parks that I'm working on, we have a mix of both. I can't say where has what, but we do have a mixture of both.
Come on, Jason, we're here to know every single item, where it is, placed in a park.
As much as we're friends, I don't really want to lose my job from exposing all of the fun secrets that we have for the parks.
This is why you do the interview once you leave Merlin.
Exactly. Then I can tell you all the dirt.
Well, if Gary's podcast was very chaotic.
Okay.
Gary owns like a bar supply store now.
Yep, he does.
He was drunk. So, I don't know if it's going to be usable, but...
Gary actually...
He was smashed.
He was one of the people who trained me.
Really?
Yeah.
He's a good... Gary is one of my closest friends. He's a really good
Did you ever meet Ryan Wood?
No, never.
Okay, so Ryan Wood is a good friend of mine. He and I have known each other for many, many years, 13 now. But Ryan was a designer at the California shop.
Wow.
Was made into a supervisor, left the California shop to open up the Florida shop, then became the supervisor of the design team. So he was he was my boss.
Yeah.
And he is now the head of the model shop at LEGOland New York.
Wow, cool.
So he's been. I think he started the company a year before me.
I should have timed this better and went to New York as well.
New York's a good park.
Problem is, all the parks, and it's going to sound bad. And
they all look the same?
They're all the same, and once you've been I'm bordering close to 20 years working with Lego.
I mean,
it's nothing excites me. So you go there, you're like, oh yeah.
You've been to Denmark.
Yeah.
Compare Denmark to Malaysia, Florida, and then even take it a step further and compare it to Japan or Korea, which just opened. They're entirely different. We had a bunch of art directors that we hired here in Orlando that are now working in China.
Wow.
And I had to teach them about Lego and LEGOland because, nobody knew the parks better than I did. So I took them to Florida, and it was a lot of, this is what we don't do anymore. This is what we can do now.
Yeah, Florida's a weird, because it used to be another theme park.
It was Cypress Gardens.
Yeah, so it's one of the biggest, I think, would say.
So,
property-wise,
it used to be, and I don't know if this is still the case. I don't think it is, but it used to be with LEGOlands. They always looked for a historical site that they could build on. I'm
going to say something controversial
that
would
you can't answer. Into the area.
Usually, LEGOlands are built in the middle of nowhere where it's cheaper.
Yes and no.
That's one thing I found, especially with Malaysia.
So, from what I understand, they chose Florida because of the historic value of the gardens.
Cedar, right? Yeah.
The gardens, the manor, all that stuff. That's why they kept all those buildings. I think it's about half of the buildings in LEGOland, Florida are original buildings from Cypress Gardens.
Yeah,
they kept a lot. Seeing that site during the construction phase was crazy because it was tear this building down, but keep this one, all dirt everywhere, and then all of a sudden a hole would appear the next day, which turned into the wave racers. It was just crazy. But even with Windsor, they chose. From what I understand, they chose that location because
I like Windsor.
Windsor is one of my favorites.
And Windsor's because it used to be an old zoo, so the layout is a lot more user friendly. Because one thing you'll know if you've been to a lot of parks is that some of them are not very user friendly. They're a bit especially California's a bit concrete jungly. It's not very
big circle.
Yeah, where Windsor's really nice, Florida's really nice. Obviously, Billund is the mothership, so that's I like Billund.
So, for those of you who have never been able to go to the Windsor Park, the reason it's my favorite is when the entire park was built on the side of a hill.
Yeah, and it's got that tram thing that goes up the hill.
Which, at the end of the day, you don't want to look at the hill and go, God, I don't want to go up that hill. But when you're walking in first thing in the morning and you get to that overlook and you can see the entire park laid out in front of you, and then in the distance you can see Windsor Castle, and on a good day you can actually see London. I don't know if you've ever actually seen London from there.
No, but I'll be there. What's today? Today is Saturday.
Today's the
Saturday.
6th?
Yes,
Yeah.
so I'll be there next Thursday.
Yeah.
So hopefully it's a nice day.
Hopefully it's a nice day, because it's, like, literally, you can see so far. Billund's fantastic. I've been once. I want to go again. But it's very, very outdated.
And it's very small.
And it's, well, I mean, if you compare it, I think it's bigger than Legoland, California.
Is it really?
I think so. California, I think, is the smallest of the parks.
I know they've got that weird, haunted house ride thing at Billund's.
Which we've just opened one in Windsor, so you'll be able to do it again.
Do they still have the politically incorrect American Indian display at Billund?
I don't know. It's woo,
it's spicy. That's a spicy
in the Wild West town.
There's like a white Danish dude that's like pretending to be an American Indian, and it's really bad. It's really bad, and but that's the Danish way.
I haven't been there in 8 years.
I'll find out in a couple of weeks when I'm there.
I will say I was building when I visited, because I actually went out to Denmark for a friend's wedding. I was one of the best men for the wedding.
You couldn't work out where you could get a free Merlin trip over?
No, I tried. But anyways, I was taking photos of everything, and I was just amazed at what was accepted.
Right.
There.
Denmark's a different. If it's a bit like going to Australia. If you go to Australia with an open mind and understand that people are not saying things to you to upset you, you'll have a great time, right?
Yeah.
Because Australians are in your face. Denmark, you go and it's a totally different style of in your face. When you go for the first time and you've never experienced that, and you go to Legoland Billund and you're like, why is there a white dude pretending to be an American Indian?
And you can find photos of this online, so I'm not...
We're not exaggerating, it's true.
You can also find a brick-built minifigure with nipples and a belly button.
I wonder if it's still there. For sure it's still there, right?
Like, in the sub. Yeah, the sub ride. In the locker room. And obviously it's a minifigure that's changing to get into his wetsuit or whatever for the dive, but I was just like, are you kidding me?
And that's at like Lego head office is right there.
Yeah, it's like okay, cool.
It's so like I'll never forget one of my first Caroline and I's first time there. There's an indoor theme park called LEGOland. It's like a really weird.
Yep, we stayed right next to that.
There was no you go into the change rooms and there was no toilet doors. It was like this really weird and poor Caroline, she's like, I don't understand. Why is there no toilet doors? It was like, there's no toilet doors, and I go into my one, I'm like, but how do you go to the bathroom if there's no toilet doors?
Yeah, so we stayed at the pirate island thing right there, and it was very interesting for us being Americans in Denmark. First of all, there's no automatic cars, which I had never driven stick before. I told the guy doing the rental.
Yeah.
Never. He's like, here's your keys. Oh,
there's no automatic.
Okay.
There's no automatic. Is really rare.
They had it, but they wanted an additional $150 a day to do it, and I'm like, I ain't paying.
Yeah.
That.
So did you have to learn stick?
I learned stick.
How did you go?
I did better than my wife. No, I did decent.
I haven't driven. We call it manual back home. I haven't driven manual for 15 years.
I drove from Billund to Copenhagen, and
how many gears did you crunch?
I just kept it in high gear the entire time. I don't care. I got yelled at from my friend in the back seat, because here in the States, all right. So here in the U.S., if you're driving on the highway, going 5 or 10 miles per hour over the speed limit,
it's okay.
It's acceptable.
It's okay.
It's fine. If you get a really angry police officer, then maybe you're going to get in trouble. But 9 times out of 10, they don't care. It's once you hit that 10 mile per hour threshold, that's when they care. Apparently in Denmark, 1 mile per hour.
Yeah, it's like Australia.
You're strike. You're take away your license. You're done. And so I was going 7 miles over the speed limit, or kilometers over the speed limit, and I'm getting yelled at from the backseat. Slow down! I'm like, why? This is normal. Not here.
It's one of those things that I discovered when Carol and we did a big trip. I want to say 4 or 5 years ago. We drove from LA to San Diego to Arizona and drove Grand Canyon, right? You don't realise how fast you go on the freeway or the highway, whatever you guys call it, like, that you're allowed to go over the speed limit without getting pulled over. Like,
Yep.
and to me it was like, oh wow, this is great. And we drove like the whole thing, and it's out of my system now, obviously, but...
Here in Florida, the speed limit is the low end of how fast you can get.
Yeah, I noticed that when I was going from the airport, the Uber driver was like, he's like, how fast did you want to get to your hotel? And I'm like, you decide for me. And it was like super quick because he was speeding the whole way.
Yep. So we had that. We stayed at the Pirates Resort, which is lovely.
Did you get a discount?
I did. At the time, I knew somebody in Lego, and they had...
Because it is super expensive
It is
to stay at, like, I'm staying at Windsor for one night because like, I better do it, I'm there anyway. So it is $450 for one night.
But that's in the nice hotel.
Yeah, that's in the castle hotel.
The Pirates is more of a campground, and then they have one or two concrete buildings that have like little apartments in it.
Yeah. Caroline and I think stayed there a few times.
So our room had one twin, and then 2 bunk beds, and blackout curtains that we had to use every night because in Billund it doesn't get dark until like 1 a.m.
When it's like summer, it's like super weird. So you discover in Europe that you're like, why is it still bright outside at 10 p.m? Like it's just one of those.
And then we walk into the bathroom and we open up the bathroom, and there's no shower. There's no like separated shower. Okay. You know how, like, in the hotels here, you got your sink.
It will just be one big room, right?
It's just one big room with a curtain that you... So we're taking a shower, and, like, the floor everywhere is getting soaked. And the thing is me and my wife, when we're out on vacation, we like to get our socks, get our shoes on, stuff like that, and then finish up with deodorant and all that stuff. Get everything but the shirt, get all the stuff done, then put the shirt on. But when the floor is soaking wet, you can't put your socks on, otherwise your socks are going to get soaked.
Yeah.
So it was just an adjustment that we had to make, and then we were next to LEGOland, and when our friends were not available, we were kind of off on our own. We don't know what's around.
No.
So we would walk over to LEGOland and eat at their, like, they have an Italian restaurant.
It's such a weird theme park, that one.
They've got an indoor ski resort, mini golf course, water park, couple of bars, couple of restaurants, a mini mart.
Yeah.
It's nuts. I get mine for gold there too. I don't know.
They have it's just a weird... It's obviously busy because every time I've been, it's been like busy. It's not... See, when I go over, it's the first time I'm seeing the Lego house being finished. So overall, have you had a pleasant time working for Melbourne?
Yeah.
Are you ready for the next step in your career?
I am. I'm looking. So the next steps for me. It's funny because I went to college for engineering and never actually finished.
Oh wow.
I wanted to design theme park attractions. I wanted to create, the big scale Disney, Universal stuff like that. And by sheer miracle, I've done a round trip and I'm back to where I started. So I'm actually, the next step for me is helping to create the new attractions for the LEGOland parks. So I'm slowly working towards getting that. I've got some goals this year I got to work on to show them that I'm capable of doing the job, and we'll see where it goes.
Awesome. Well, I think we've covered everything without getting anyone in trouble. What do you reckon?
We may have gone on tangents a second.
That's fine. That's fine. That's what makes the best podcast, I think. Well, I appreciate you taking the time. Since all things considered, it's been a long time.
Appreciate you.
I got Jason a shirt, so that's his payment for this.
Yeah!
Just to clarify, I'm not paying anybody for the podcast, so I don't get into trouble later.
He did me a favor because I couldn't get into a theme park.
And I got him a nice shirt that he wanted. I got one too to sleep in, so that's even better.
It's a cool shirt.
But we appreciate you. I look forward to seeing what you do next.
Absolutely.
Do you use social media?
Yes and no.
Do you want people to follow you on Instagram?
I don't have an Instagram.
I'm
too old for Instagram.
I won't put any of his socials because he doesn't have any.
I'm on Twitter, and I.
Yeah, but Twitter is a hot mess right now.
And I used to stream on Twitch, but I haven't streamed.
Yeah, I've got to get back into streaming. I was streaming I did 130 days straight. Every day I streamed to test to see how it would work. But hopefully when I get back home, I'll get it all back.
I mean, I was streaming 3 days a week, 4 hours 5 days a week, 4 hours a day.
Wow.
And
will be streaming Lego or like
Video games.
Oh, cool.
Video games.
Same as me.
There's some
New Star Wars.
I tried
games
to.
came out.
Oh, it's so good.
Don't tell me I haven't got it yet. I'm gonna stream it when I get back home.
I've been torn recently. I have buddies that I play video games with, and so I've been bouncing between that and Dead Island 2 and Redfall and a bunch of other stuff. But I used to stream like Lego games, all sorts of stuff.
Which are all the same. Nothing against Lego, but they're all the same.
But it's fun. Which is interesting now with the Funko game coming out, which is going to be a direct competitor.
I reckon Funko might do it a bit better.
We'll see.
Because they don't have limitations, where like Lego like to keep things kid friendly, where Funko might push it a little bit further.
They can. I'm very so. Not to continue tangents. I'm interested to see what they do with the franchises that Lego has already done. Because in the trailer, I think they've shown Back to the Future, and they've shown Jurassic Park.
Jurassic Park will be awesome.
So it's going to be very interesting to see what they do. And they've already shown that they're going to break the walls between the franchises, much like Lego Dimensions did. Because there's one of the cutscenes they have is in Jurassic World, but it's one of the characters from the Umbrella Academy getting eaten by the
cool.
T-Rex, or at least the head going in the mouth. So it's going to be very interesting to see what they do with that. But anyways, yes, I'm a Horizons man on most socials. Very easy to...
Alright, I'll get it off you later, put it down the bottom so people can follow it. A big shout out to Jason. Love our fantastic cream background in Florida here. If it all goes to plan, there might be another podcast with someone else, but we'll see how it goes. Another Jason. That's the plan. But we'll see, I don't know. Our timings are weird and I'm busy, man. Not really. I want to go to Disney, but that's fine.
You're on vacation, man. What are you talking about?
Thanks again, Jason. We appreciate you.
Appreciate having me.